Because in 1884-85, Europeans sat at a table in Berlin, Germany, not a single African there, and carved up Africa into the territories that we now sometimes call countries and illogically refer to as nations. Africans didn't do that. It was Europe that did that. It was Europe and imperialism that required Africa to be divided so that the resources of Africa, both human and material, could come and pave the streets in London and grow the buildings in Amsterdam and bring clean water to New York, while the streets in Sierra Leone are not paved, and the people in Sierra Leone do not have clean water, and there's no national electric grid there. It is necessary to keep Africa divided by European imperialism and by all the imperialism in order to continue to suck the resources from Africa so that cell phones could exist here, so that Steve Jobs and the others could achieve some great notoriety from the coltan that comes from Congo, where Leopold killed at least 12 to 15 million Africans, Africa for Africans, at home and abroad. That was the cry. Not Africans for Nigerians that didn't even exist until the British created it in 1915. And Flora Shaw, the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard, came up with the name nigger area. It is a false national consciousness. The false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have closer union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. African revolution that will destroy imperialism and the world economy that's responsible for the growing immiseration of the masses of people around the world. Uhuru.
Today we are looking at Ndi Igbo as a case study. The Igbo people, irrespective of the way the government of Nigeria planned its cartography, not even the government of Nigeria, Africa was shared during a Berlin conference that held in Germany that had no one African person sitting down, not even one single African person sitting with them. The balkanized Africa decided, where will this boundary stop? If it stops here, who takes where? They shared the world. They shared Africa. So in this sharing, they divided places that are supposed to be one nation into another nation. That is why you will have Ndi Igbo spread across different states in one federation, spread across different regions, such that some people now begin to have identity crisis. Are we here? Do we belong here? Do we not belong here? Some people who belong in the place where their neighbors are Igbo feel they are the main Igbo. Those who have their neighbors as other tribes begin to ask themselves, am I really Igbo, or am I different from my brothers in the homeland? All this happened because of cultural interaction and then cartography. Cartography in the sense that government decides this is Bayelsa state and the boundary starts from here, ends there. Whether you are an Ndoki person in Bayelsa, you speak Igbo or a version of Igbo language, you are in Bayelsa state. And if you are not well grounded enough culturally, you will begin to lose your Igbo-ness and begin to tilt towards calling yourself an Ijo person. This has happened in so many places. We have seen instances of places that were once under the influence of Benin Kingdom. Places like Ibanke, places like the Ika communities, Owa, Abavo, all these areas close to Benin, under the influence of the Benin Empire. The people who migrated away from them during these periods, their descendants, their children now regard themselves as Benin people, despite the fact that the names of their ancestors were unmistakably Igbo. their cultural practices are still Igbo. Their market days, their phantoms, their portmanteau, everything about them, any word at all you want to study. If you want to study the etymology of any word in their diction, it tilts you back to Igbo. Most of these people bear names like Okafo, Okeke, Okonkwo, and they still say they are not Igbo. Because their ancestors migrated from a place that was once under the influence of Benin Kingdom. And then they will tell you about homage, which is what some people even still say till today. Even kings who are educated are posing symptoms of identity crisis, proudly exhibiting symptoms of identity crisis. A king says, my ancestors used to pay homage to Benin Kingdom, therefore I am a Benin man. Failing to understand what homage is. Homage system, or the fact that you pay homage, does not mean you are from a certain place. The fact that your ancestors paid homage made them even less. You are trying to say that your ancestors were kind of slaves to these other people and they were superior. Hence, your ancestors were paying homage to them. They were not allies. They were subordinates to this particular big kingdom. Even Nigeria at some point were paying homage to the Queen of England. Now that we have gotten our independence, it is no longer morally right for us to go there and pay homage. It is now discretional. I'm using this as an instance to advise those whose kingdoms are no longer under the influence of any Benin kingdom, yet they claim they are Benin people. It is a mentality of slavery. It is a mentality that has still failed to change or evolve, even if times have evolved. Your kingdoms are no longer paying homage to Benin kingdom, but yet you consider yourself a Benin person. The people we are talking about, so some of them bear complete ancestral Igbo names. They speak a version of the Igbo language, yet they will boldly and proudly tell you they are not Igbo. And on what basis are they not Igbo? They will say, because my ancestors did not migrate anywhere from the Igbo homeland, which is the states in the southeast. State creation started maybe around 1967 as part of efforts by General Yakubu Gowon. Efforts of Yakubu Gowon to reduce the numerical strength, the population of the Biafra people. Regions became state. The southeast region gave birth to 3 states, which are the then Calabar state, the now River state. All these are places that came. All these are places that came from the area once known as the Eastern region. The headquarters of the Eastern states was now Enugu. These were efforts of General Yakubu Gowon. 3 states came from the southeast then. 1 state came from the Midwest. The Midwest region became the Midwestern state. Later became Bendel state. So we had a total of 12 states. These 12 states now began to shape identity. Places like Port Harcourt in Rivers State, that was once predominantly Igbo, is now grappling between being Igbo and being Ijo. You will now see a man in Port Harcourt boldly telling you that he is not an Igbo man. Why? He will say because he did not migrate anywhere from southeast. You will see people in Delta State who were once completely regarded and addressed as Igbo, now saying they are not Igbo. Why? They said they did not migrate from the southeast. In fact, that they migrated from Benin. The place they now refer as Benin was once occupied, is still even occupied by Proto-Igbo speaking people. This is not my word. This is This is a fact that you can cross-check and still find it in historical documents. Books written by Professor Elizabeth Isichei, books written by Adiele Afikpo, books written by Professor Onwejogu, Angolo Onwejogu, books written by Professor Wabara. You will find that Proto-Igbo speaking people were among the early populations of Benin. The place called Benin Empire had Igbo speaking people in it. It still has Igbo speaking people in it. In the normal Benin language, Benin diction of today, you will find no fewer than 50 to 100 Igbo words unaltered in their daily use. So if an Igbo man lived in Anidu, which is what we called Benin before Oromiyan invaded it, brought a lot of strife and war, which you will know as an Igbo man as Ayidu Noba, and the place was called a land of strife, Ile Ibinu, they will tell you that the place is not called Ile Ibinu. They will say it's Ubini. Whatever the version is, the place was a war zone at a time because the people resisted the kingship system brought in by Oromiyan. Therefore, as at that time, people ran away. People ran away because of the differences they had and because of the political influence they also had. People like Nnaye Ezechima moved. Remember, Ezechima was not even living in Anidu. He lived in Ado, hence the name Ezechima, Ndị Ando Nidu. Even the people of Onitsha, the people of Iseluku, Obio, Ezi, Onichubo, Obompa, all the descendant communities of Ezechima still call themselves Ndị Ado Nidu because their parents lived in Ado, lived in Idu before returning homewards. For emphasis, their father Ezechima was laid eternally at Ovio, a hometown not very far from Ubuluku, is where Ezechima was finally buried. His children, the children of Oheze, his first son, who died while he was alive, proceeded towards Onocha. Onocha means to stay apart, and they established their homes around Onocha, around Mili Omambala. That is why they are called Ndi Onocha Mili, those who live by the river. Those who stay by the farm are also called Ndi Onocha Ubo. Those who stayed by the farm, Ndi Onocha Ubo, Ndi Onocha Ubo, Ndi Onocha Mili. This is how the names Onitsha came to be. These are Igbo people. Now, if these people can express their Igbo-ness, how much more if these people in a banquet today can even express their Igbo-ness, still bearing titles like Eze, Obi, still having communities like Mbiri? How then will somebody who migrated from there in the 16th century or 17th century or even 12th century be claiming that they are not Igbo simply because they did not migrate anywhere from the southeast? The word southeast came as a region, and it came with the colonizers. It is a colonizer's word. How long are we going to continue referring ourselves by terms given to us by the colonizer? We had an identity. Our identity then was unique. I, for instance, I am Onobolo man. No matter how the government name changes and continues to change, I will still remain Nwezemobolo. Oyobolo. Oyobolo. I am from Obolo clan. I am still a descendant, a son of Ezemu, the king of Ubuluku. That is my bloodline, a princely bloodline. Whether we were in Western Nigeria, whether we were in Midwestern Nigeria, whether we were in Bendel State, whether we are now in Delta State, and whether it becomes an Yoma State tomorrow, I still remain Igbo. That is the identity. That is the cultural identity that doesn't change. So, the Igbo identity is cultural. It is not political. Political identities must be differentiated from cultural identities. I think this is the basis of the history that is supposed to be taught in schools today, so that people can lose their identity crisis. One of the biggest challenges to history today is identity crisis. If you see a young graduate today, a university graduate, and ask him, maybe because of the vacuum created by the over a decade of not teaching history, a vacuum was created. If you ask a young graduate today, what is your name? He answers you very politely and fluently. Where are you from? What is your ethnic group? He says, I am from River State. River State is not an ethnic group. What is your ethnic group? Where are you from? He says, I'm a Delta. Are you Igbo? He says, no, I'm not Igbo, I'm a Delta. What is the name of your community? He says, I'm from Ibuzo. You are not Igbo. You are from Ibuzo. Igbo, Uzo. You are not Igbo. So where are you from? He says, I am Delta. Delta State is a political identity created by the colonizer. It is created by cartography, government map. And very soon, if things work out, you will no longer have the Delta State again. You will now see yourself as an Anyoma person. Then your identity will have changed 5 times. Your political identity anyway, because your cultural identity, no matter how much you deny it, remains constant. Cultural identities don't change. That is why I am advocating for people to embrace their cultural identity, because it doesn't change. If you have told your daughter that she is Igbo, you will not change it until she dies. But my children now know they are Deltans, and that they are Igbo. Tomorrow I can tell them they are no longer Deltans, that they are from Anyoma State. So if they ask you, where are you from? You say, I'm from Anyoma. Remember myself, dear father, I have been from, I don't know, I have been from Bendel State. I have been from Delta State. Now I may be from Anyoma State, which is 3 different political identities. But my cultural identity has remained one and the same. Afambongozi Chukwuka, Onwadenim, Oyubuluku Kembo, na Nocha South Local Government Area of Delta State, Nigeria. That first line I gave does not change. That I am an Igbo man from Ubuluku in Delta State. And there are Igbo people as well in Edo State, in all here our local government area. The interesting thing about these Igbo people in Edo State is that they don't have boundary with most local governments in Edo State. They have boundary with Delta State. It is because it is said that Samuel Obemudia, who was the then governor of Edo State, his mother is from Ibanke, this Igbo-speaking Padika community, and his father is from Benin. He wanted to make sure that his father's place and his mother's place are in the same state. Therefore, he ensured that Ibanke becomes part of Edo State. That particular mistake is about to be corrected. That particular mistake will be corrected by boundary adjustments that will accompany the creation of Anyoma State. So, why and what makes Ndi Igbo very resilient is what we are looking at today. Then I had to discuss a little bit about their identity. You see, cultural identity, it is very, very important. It is not something that can be overflowed. It is not even something that can be ignored. Cultural identity defines you as a person, who you are and what you are. It is your genetic makeup. It is by your cultural identity that it is determined how far you can go, or how low you can even go. How determined you are as a person. No single Igbo person that has Igbo blood unadulterated is subservient. Remember, the mantra of Ndi Igbo is give me freedom or give me death, and I will accept both in open arms or with open arms. Ndi Igbo are people known for their resilience, for their self-determination, for their strong will, for their industry, and most importantly, for their ingenuity. An Igbo man is a genius. Few days ago, we have been discussing 3 Igbo people who picked up Grammy Awards in one night in 3 different categories that are not even related to us. Imagine an Igbo man winning Grammy Award for country music, winning it ahead of Americans. Imagine an Igbo man winning an award for visual creativity, that is Tyler Okoma. Then imagine an Igbo woman again winning an award for her stage performance of a song. These are the people that own all this. They are not our traditional areas. But her performance on stage gave her a Grammy, her second. For Tyler Okoma, his third. Then for Chibueze, his first. The resilience of Ndi Igbo comes in their identity as an Igbo person. An Igbo person who carries Igbo blood unadulterated can never lower the bar.